me grow, who want to help me grow, but also who I am happy to be around. I'm inspired by them. I'm always learning. They're always showing me something. So it makes it easy. It shouldn't be hard work. It shouldn't be painful. But mentorship, I think, is one of the biggest levers that accelerates your growth as a person.
Thank you, Natalie. You've broken down the importance of mentorship very well, and you've let us in that your dad was your first mentor. We would be glad to know who else has mentored you along the journey, especially that you mentioned as a woman leader, you felt the need to switch and specifically have a female mentor. And the audience would like to know who has mentored you as a female, and also to understand that we are moving in the digital era where mentorship has been evolutionary and continues to transform into very many different places and spaces. So, Dr. Natalie, would you like to let us in on what podcast you're listening to, what books you're reading or have read that anybody who may not have the opportunity to have a face-to-face mentor, to have the physical interaction, can benefit from? If there are any books, podcasts, subscriptions, so that we can have a good balance between those who have an opportunity to be mentored physically and those who might just be relying on a big percentage of virtual mentorship. Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. I really appreciate being able to learn in a digital age, because a lot of the ways I have been mentored is by immersion through digital mediums. For example, when I read a book by someone and now I like the book, I'm obsessive. I want to go watch their YouTube channel. I follow them on Instagram. I follow them on Twitter. I subscribe to their newsletter, so that every single day for those 3-6 months that I'm obsessed with the person, that's all I want to know and hear and see, so I can learn as much as possible. Right now, I'm obsessed with Ryan Holiday. He's the author of Stillness is the Key, Courage is Calling. He has about 7 books, so I'm making my way through the books. But he has a daily newsletter that you can subscribe to on his website, The Daily Stoic. He has an Instagram account. He has so many talks on YouTube. A lot of big organizations, military organizations, governments, constant high-end organizing myself, prepping, getting food. I have this YouTube playing in the background. As soon as I finish one book, I move to the next book. If I'm sitting in the salon, I'm reading one of his books. So I'd like to use that immersion technique, because I feel like I learn so much more, and I feel like I'm spending time with him every day. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to read some of his book. So I go through phases like that with different people, and then I get to feel like I've immersed myself in what they are teaching and what's most important to them. And you do it to the point where now it's getting repetitive. I know what's coming. I understand. The points are all clicking. Then I feel ready to move to the next one. I went through that phase with Mel Robbins. I went through that phase with Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Tim Ferriss. Oh, I went through like a year of Tim Ferriss. So Marie Forleo is another really good one. Lisa Nichols. These are all like people who work in development and performance. So about growing themselves and their clients and how they can do better. And I feel like I resonate a lot with them, because my job is to really to manage a lot of people and to make sure the most is coming out of every company, every startup, any reach their potential. So I feel like that's interesting to me, and so I tend to fall into those circles. Also, over the years, I've always had mentors of people who I meet. Like if I go for a conference, one of my mentors was a professor of mine at business school. But because of technology, we can stay in touch. We'll do a Zoom call every 2 weeks, asks me questions. How's this going? What about this? Someone who you can bounce things off, who can push back and tell me, have you really thought that through? Is that really a good idea? What's driving you to do this? Another of my mentors was a therapist many years ago who I met. Where did I meet her? At a conference of some sort. But we just clicked and we started talking, and we talked for those few days, and then we stayed in touch over the years, sending emails, giving advice. If I have a question, if she has an opportunity. So we got to know each other very well, and now our paths cross when we're at the same conference, or we plan like when I'm traveling to meet in another city where we'll both be. So you keep those relationships going, because people have different perspectives from you. And like with her, we think in a very similar way, but her life is completely different from mine. So to get her perspective on the things that happen in my world and my perspective for the things that happen to her has also really helped me. I think one of the things I warn people about is don't surround yourself with people who are just like you. If all your friends look like you, sound like you, live in the same neighborhood, you went to the same schools, then you're all thinking in the same way. You don't get innovation that way. You won't get anything new. It's harder to grow or to move faster because thinking in the same way. So I always try to make sure that I'm getting challenged. I'm getting someone who pushes back, someone who disagrees with me. And it's also important that to have that attitude, if concept I'm trying to understand for work, who are all the big voices in the area? Okay, these ones I don't really like, but let me keep them in my feed so I know what the other side is saying. I think that's why governments have opposition, right? So that you have your view and you also have someone to check you, checks and balances, to make sure they're pushing you to the next level. So for me, that's really important. I'm trying to think, who else would I suggest? I think locally also it's important for me to be in touch with like different women's organizations. I follow a lot of East African women on social media. I try to buy their books when I get them because I think as African women we have a unique perspective and a shared experience that I'm not going to get that perspective from a white man in America, but it's good to understand what's going on for us here because our specific challenges are similar to the challenges of women abroad, but again are different. We also have added layers of culture, of tradition, of our circumstances, of our economies. So there are different things to look at and sort of put those lenses as I learn things. I like to constantly be learning a lot of different things, but it's my job to filter, to have judgment, to understand what I'm learning and how it's going to apply in my life.
Oh, thank you very much for dissecting the issue of mentorship, Natalie. We really appreciate that. You confirm that mentorship is very versatile and can come in many forms, but it's up to you, the mentee, to speak and pick out carefully who is able to mentor you in whatever season you are in and whatever goals or values you are trying to achieve, so that you get the best front row seat, so to speak, in this person's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not just the highlight reels on social media. We've spoken about the importance of mentorship and the ways to be mentored as women leaders, and I want to quickly take a right turn and talk about the woman or women in leadership positions and the workplace dynamic. Every governance story, especially, or rhetoric, especially post-COVID and the many post-COVID issues that are outside the pandemic, the economy, the political terrain, the social, everything generally around the macroeconomy in which we are operating as women leaders has changed. And the term VUCA has become very frequently used in many boardrooms, business settings, and in general, VUCA is all about the volatility, the uncertainty, the ambiguity, and the complexity of the world in general, but mostly the business world. Dr. Natalie, from your very vast experience, would you please help us have a quick run through the contemporary issues specific to women in leadership positions post the VUCA issues post-COVID? What are the issues in the workplace that a woman at whatever level of leadership, whether it is a sole proprietorship or somebody sitting on a board on a Fortune 500 company, should be cognizant of and work around to be an outstanding woman who is in leadership? Thank you.
It's funny you say that. I noticed it as well, and I was speaking to my dad about it, and we're like, what is up with VUCA? Everyone is talking about VUCA these days. It's really become the go-to abbreviation of the moment. I think when you talk about women's issues, I would separate them from everybody's issues, right? But I would say there's issues we have at a personal level, like how we carry ourselves as women in the workplace, especially women in leadership positions. And then at like more of a technical level, like policies, institutes, and where the world is going. I think, I hate to say it, and I hate that it's true, but the burden is still on us to carry ourselves in a way that's going to move us forward in our careers at any stage. Whether you're just starting your career or your business, you're a student, you're a mom, as whether you're in a boardroom level and you're a CEO, women are still not given the same chance, the same opportunity, the same pay, the same, gift of doubt. Like, let's give her innocent until proven guilty. Because we are women, we are already judged, we have other burdens, we have other layers attached to us. This is why I reject the notion of superwoman. I feel like that's something women are aspiring to be, but we're not going to get paid more for that. We're not going to get more points because we're super mom, super lady in the office, super sister, super cousin. We don't get extra hours in the day. We don't get paid extra money. We're not going to be given extra joy. So I feel like pushing women to try and kill it at every area, it's exhausting. The challenge is we're living in a transitional time. The generations of women that have the ability to work right now are still in the first generations. Our mother's generation, our grandmother's generation, there was still one woman in every room, one woman in each company. They still had to fight for many things. We don't have to fight for the basics. There's women's bathrooms in every building. It's harder to discriminate, but we're still fighting. And some people don't like the word fight. I like the word fight. I feel like it makes me feel more proactive about what's going on. But we're still not given the same fair playing field, is the truth. And that still falls on us. We have to still work twice as hard. We have to show up. We can't say, I have to pick up my kids. We can't say, I need extra maternity leave. I need this, I need that. We're still under pressure and it's not fair. And I say we're living in transitional times because the working world is patriarchal. It was designed in a capitalist society where women didn't work. So the average worker was supposed to be a white man working 9 to 5 in an office job, right? So he has a support system around him. But now we have workers who are women. So we're expected to be like a man in the office where we show up in the hours that are regulated. But also we still have to be women in our personal lives. We still have to give birth to babies. We still have to look after our homes. We still have to look after our parents, our in-laws. We still have to be sisters and friends and cousins. I'm not saying men don't have social burdens, but we're playing in 2 games at the same time. And we're in one body. Before, those roles were separate. So right now we're doing both and we're expected to be exceptional at both because the standards are incredibly high for women. And I hope that it's a transitional time because as policies change and as the technical things around us change, the institutes, things will improve. Things need to be adjusted in the workplace because now it needs to be inclusive of women. I had a quote the other day. The lady said, we should not be trying to break glass ceilings. Let's break the brick walls and redesign the whole building. And she's right. Instead of trying to push ourselves to aspire to climb up a ladder designed by men for men, let's remove a ladder and build something that works for women. And that, I feel like, translates across the whole spectrum. From the way we are expected to dress in the office, the way our bodies work. I listened to a podcast the other day and the woman was saying how because of women's menstrual cycles, our emotions, our energy, everything changes every week depending on where you are in your phase. And that some workplaces in America are now giving women 3 days off per month depending on your cycle dates. You just have to tell them in advance. These 3 days in a month, I want to work from home. Because our bodies are different. We're not designed to be on our feet all day or grinding in a field or being outdoors or being in an office at a desk. All these things have their health implications. And even for men, there are a lot of things like this they have to think about. But this is what I mean. That's a bit of an extreme example, but it's true. We were not the target audience when the workplace was designed. So even things, I think PwC has a rule about women have to wear heels to work because it's more professional. If you're pregnant, you're allowed to wear wedges. Why are you policing what we can and cannot wear? The standard of professional was designed by men. It's like how with racism, women have had that issue. African natural hair is not professional. You're not allowed to have your afro in the office or to have dreadlocks or to have natural styles. We're all being taught to straighten our hair, put it in braids, tie it back. And now is only when the world is pushing back against that. Women's natural hair, the way God made it, is professional. You can't police those things. So that's why I say we're living in a transitional time. Things are changing from the burdens on us individually to the policies in place. The Me Too movement changed a lot about what is acceptable publicly in terms of sexual harassment in the workplace. But still, I'm sure we're all teaching our daughters, our juniors, don't be in the office alone with a man. You're just not safe. You're putting yourself in a bad position. You're the one at risk. Rather than spending time teaching men, it's inappropriate to have your secretary in your office at 7 o'clock and the door is closed. There are many small things that we still have to teach on both sides to make workplaces more inclusive and more supportive so women can grow. COVID was a good time and a bad time for women. So many women lost their jobs and never got back into the workforce. I can't remember the number, something like 17 million in the world, because of the type of work women do. Caregivers, nurses, part-time workers, teachers. So many women who are doing jobs that are paid less, that are flexible time, had to give up their work to look after their children because schools were closed. Or when companies were doing layoffs, those were the jobs that were removed first, the part-time workers. And those are the ones where women prefer because they have to look after their kids. We don't give birth to children alone, but somehow it's our responsibility to raise them alone. That is the understanding of the male workplace. And then at the same time, COVID showed how work from home was possible. So many families benefited because they could actually be at home and spend time with their children, men and women. And it also helped workers and employers to understand that if you give a woman a target and a deadline, she's able to meet it without sitting physically in front of you from 9 to 5. That myth at least was debunked. So for example, in America, now companies that offer hybrid working are hiring 3 times faster than companies that refuse it, because that's where people want to work. People like the flexibility of that, to have that autonomy in your work. You're given a target, this is your job, your project, your scope, but do it at your own pace. We are adults, we can manage ourselves. We're no longer factory workers in a line where you have to show up physically, someone has to head count you, what time did you reach, what time did you leave. I think we still lack a lot of discipline in our workplaces, especially here, where it's hard to manage and control people that way. But it's nice to know that this is the path humanity is on, where you give someone work and respect them to do their work in their way. So I think COVID did help us in that way, but there's still a long way for us to go as women in the workplace.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natalie. For those who are joining us online and the Twitter space, this is Fidelis Leadership Institute. We have Fat Talks every Thursday on Smart TV Live and on the Twitter space. And on this edition of Women in Leadership, we have Dr. Natalie Vitature debunking the myth of superwomanhood for us. We do have a conversation going on Twitter in the same space, and we'd like to hear your views on what you think about superwomanhood, especially for the women in leadership. Women in leadership doesn't only mean the boardrooms, but we're referring to any kind of leadership role that you find yourself in, and we would like to get your views on that. So thank you very much, Dr. Natalie, for breaking down the workplace environment in the VUCA era of volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity. And to continue with this conversation, we would like for you to speak about the imposter syndrome. Recently, I read an article where it was confirmed that for every job application, for example, this is from a psychology point of view, 90% of the men who apply for jobs don't have the confidence and probably are not as qualified. Yet, on the other way around, the Kruger effect, 90% of qualified women who could, without a doubt, qualify for that same position don't apply or don't show up confidently because they don't have the confidence. As a leader who has broken ceilings and been recognized on several platforms, what do you have to say about imposter syndrome, and how have you been able, if you have experienced it, to overcome it in your journey as a woman leader?
That is a very good question, and it's very tied to this myth of superwoman. This is why I say I don't aspire to be a superwoman, because it's unattainable. You never feel good enough. I can't say I've overcome imposter syndrome. As soon as you achieve one thing, you're now thrown into a bigger, arena, and now you have to figure out that thing. What I've learned with imposter syndrome is to manage it, because I think things that are installed in us very young are very difficult to reprogram as adults. So from the time you're young as a girl, you're mostly told you cannot do things, or you're not smart enough, or you're not able, or you should be doing something else, or you're a girl, okay, let's give you a chance. No one is giving us confidence from day one that, yeah, of course you're going to do it. And I don't just mean like our parents, I mean it's in society. There are expressions like you fight like a girl, and it's an insult. You run like a girl. Those small things, I see now companies like Always are changing and doing adverts where they're promoting run like a girl, fight like a girl, because it should be a positive thing. There's nothing wrong with being a girl. But if you give this subliminal messaging to women when they're young, we spend our entire lives trying to figure it out. I can't say that I have conquered imposter syndrome and now I take on all challenges. That study about how women apply to jobs, I constantly preach it to young women. If you qualify for all the different criteria that they're asking on that job description, you are overqualified for that job. Don't even waste time applying. But the problem is when women see it the other way around. I only fit 3 out of the 7 criteria. Let me wait till I have 7 or more years experience. You have 5 years of work experience, and the truth is you're doing work for 2 of the men on your team. So really you're qualified and you can do it. But we also have to believe in ourselves, to push ourselves. The first thing I noticed in the first year of working with her, at Her Working Women, we have more than 5,000 women that we have for meetups, events, we do trainings, opportunities. We're now in 4 different areas. We have her in Dubai. We have an Embarara meetup coming up this month. We're working with students, with professionals, with corporates. So you get to interact and spend a lot of time with women. And I realized before you even need to teach women financial literacy or where to apply for grants or how to start a business, they need to learn to believe in themselves. Because if you don't believe you can do it, then you're right, you will not be able to do it. But to believe in something that you've never been given, it's very difficult to build that base, to build that spark. But why I love being at the high events, you can see it pass from woman to woman. When we have a guest speaker, and Fiona from Fidelis was one of our guest speakers, she was great. And she was so honest. She spoke up and she told her story, the good bits, the bad bits, the hard bits, her personal life, her professional life, her current challenges. That's what we need to hear from each other because we're all struggling through something. But when you hear someone else go through it and see they survived, they pushed, they did it, it inspires you to also be brave and to try. We lack a lot of courage as women. We're more risk averse because we have more to lose. You can't take a risk and quit your job and start a business when you have to look after your kids. You can't be pushy and harass your boss. I need a promotion, I need a promotion, I need a promotion. Let me assure you, the men harass constantly with 0 negative side effects or pushback. And it's one thing to compete because me, I'm a competitive person. So sometimes it motivates me. And I think if I was a man, would I even be having this doubt of myself? Would I even be questioning? Because how often do you sit in a meeting and some man who is in some leader position says something that's totally nonsense? And I'm like, how is this one the boss? They don't even have that moment of doubt. At least doubt yourself and say, okay, maybe I'm not sure, but perhaps. Nothing. I think this is what we should do. And you're all looking at him like, okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Not that all men are like that.
Thank you so much for bringing in that. First of all, we appreciate your wisdom in confirming that it is a rewiring issue. We need to go back to our fundamentals, our foundations, what stories we were told, and retell them to ourselves every single time to change the narratives, first of all, in our heads, so that we can present ourselves as the most confident versions of ourselves. We already have it in us, but to tell the story first internally before it can be showed externally. Thank you very much. But now that brings us to a lighter note. You mentioned about the guys being too confident and you wonder where do they get their wind. I would like us to take it on a lighter note with you, Dr. Natalie, in this coming segment. Are you a boss lady? Who is a boss lady? Because either you have imposter syndrome or you carry yourself too high. In this era of throwing around terms and then they take on a new meaning. Who is a boss lady? Are you one?
I don't get these terms. They're going to kill us.
I know.
Have you ever heard of a boss man? Is that a thing? No. I feel like because these are new areas for women, people need these terms almost to mock us, also to encourage us, to label us. Yes, there is a huge vacuum.
Who is labeling? Is it the gentleman or are we labeling ourselves? I am the boss babe, I'm the boss lady.
But now the problem with these terms is they're taken in positive and negative ways.
True.
If you now walk around my dad's generation and start saying you're a boss lady, they're all just going to look at you and roll their eyes. This one is a diva. She doesn't understand what she's doing here. Why must you talk about it? Them, they didn't need those titles. But they're coming from a different kind of position, right? So I think if women want to use a title like boss lady or boss babe or girl boss, those things, it's fun, it's whimsical, it's inspiring, it's encouraging. But when someone can use it against you, that's when it hurts. So you have to use it in a confident way that works for you. People call me that all the time. I won't correct them if they are not doing it in a negative way. But I don't think of myself like that because I'm just a person.
Okay.
I'm also just getting up every day and trying.
And figuring it out as you go.
Second chance. Yeah. I'm constantly thrown into new situations I also have to figure it out, know that I don't know, ask questions, be nervous. But I've learned with time, you don't die from that situation.
Okay.
I didn't know. I said something stupid. I asked a silly question. I didn't understand the dress code or the concept, but I learned.
Good.
And I moved on, and the world moved on.
Thank you. So, Dr. Natalie, another fun question for you. And you can answer this as comfortably as you can. If this season of your life were to be a movie or a song, what would be the theme? What would be the song or the theme? I can give you some clues, but you can also give us yours.
That is a challenging one for me.
Let me try to give you some options so we can get into your headspace a little bit. I'm going to give you 4, and then 2 movies and maybe 2 songs, and we see if you can choose where you are as a woman in a leadership position. 1, Mission Impossible. 2,
No.
Fast and Furious. And
Perhaps that one.
Fast and Furious. Okay, and the songs? I Am Every Woman.
Yeah, I like that.
What about City at Danger? So which of those best describes your current situation?
Important. What I've learned is important. Words are important. The words
Yes.
you speak, the words you use, the words you believe. So that's why I say no to danger, no to Mission Impossible. Those ones, please remove from me.
So you're Fast and Furious in this season of your
Fast and
leadership.
Furious. I think anyone who knows me would agree that's a very apt description of how I am.
Oh, thank you for that vulnerable and honest evaluation of yourself. And we hope to see you in the next season or in the next release of Fast and Furious. All right.
I do have to say I Am Every Woman though.
I Am Every Woman.
I watched the Barbie movie last night, and there's a very good speech in Barbie where she talks about how the standards are unattainable for women because we're pulled in so many different directions, and everyone is being pushed to be amazing and extraordinary in this Superwoman kind of theme.
So you mean
just ordinary?
You mean in the
All of
sense
us.
you're every woman, you're ordinary, you're extraordinary, you're strong, you're weak. The and or you're not boxed up into just Superwoman or boss lady, but you're weak, you're strong, you're tender, you're nurturing, you're assertive, and all that. So you're every woman.
Yes.
Thank you.
We all go through all of that. There's no one woman who is just extraordinary or just perfect, or one who is just terrible. We all go through all the different facets of life.
Thank you for that vulnerability and authenticity. It's exactly what we need in the Fidelis Leadership Institute, and this is what we are encouraging everyone to do at whatever level you find. There's a very good book by Robin Sharma for even those who feel they are not yet officially designated. I don't have a name on the door. I don't have an office with my name on it. I don't have a table with my tag on it. There is a book I would like to recommend from the Fidelis Leadership Institute. It's by Robin Sharma called Leader with No Title. Anyone who's struggling to find or to define, because women are very big on identity, please get that book and see the concepts about leading from where you are, wherever you're placed, that will help you on your leadership journey. Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie, for joining us today. We have just a few minutes left. A good conversation. Time goes so fast, but we are so glad that we've had you today, and I know we will continue engaging on the social media platforms with her, with Fidelis, with our individual social media handles. But what is a good conversation about women without reining in the other gender, as we say? So in the final question to you, Dr. Natalie, as we work on the quest to equip and empower women leaders in the workplace, in business, what would be your message to a boy child? Because we are still mothers raising sons, and we live with husbands, brothers, male bosses. So I believe in the interest of inclusion, let them be part of the conversation if we are going to address this in a holistic way. What would be your message to the boy child?
That's a very good question. We are also not an island as women. We need the male and we need allies. Firstly, I would say don't be discouraged. I think the way feminism has been publicize the PR about the girl child and empowerment and what. Honestly, the men are fed up. They're like, talk over the girl child. Everything is for women these days, for girls, and they feel a bit pushed to the side. And on the best case scenario, they're disgruntled quietly. The worst case scenario, they're literally out there killing us. So,
or they've signed out. They've signed out completely. They don't want to know.
Yeah, anything you say about women or feminism or Me Too or what, they're just like, you don't want. And I think the mistake there was no sensitization for men about what women's empowerment was going to do to society and the consequences of that. If your wife has gone to work and has worked the same 8 hours of you, why do you think that she comes home with a secret supply of energy to start cooking and cleaning and looking after your household? It doesn't make sense. So I think what we have to do with the next generation of men is to teach them that the role of men has also changed. The only way this is going to work is if we all evolve together. We cannot keep traditional gender roles while you expect women also to be contributing to your paychecks and your household income. So I remember Sheryl Sandberg said, you either have to find a supportive partner or no partner at all as a woman. Because if you have the kind of husband that is going to expect you to work hard all day, then work hard in the evening and on the weekend and everything to fit the life that they grew up in because their mothers were not working, you're going to have a very difficult life. That's why women have higher levels of all sorts of long-term diseases. Autoimmune diseases, cancer, they're just exhausted, physically run down because we're trying to do too much at the moment. And at the same time, men feel like they're losing purpose because we don't need them anymore. Before, women literally needed men to stay alive, either to protect us physically or to pay for everything in our lives. But now that women work and have agency, we don't need men. But it's having a lot of negative consequences on families, on households, economies, the workforce. In Asia, they're now having a challenge about getting people to have kids. Women are refusing to have children. People don't want to get married. People have divorce. People don't want to have children in those kinds of situations. And now they're going to have an issue with workforce. So there are many negative consequences that we're not prepared for. But you can't blame women and we can't turn feminism around. That wave has already left. It's on its way. We're moved. We're not going backwards. So I think the best thing we can do for men who are already adults and working in the workplace, I feel like honestly, if you're under the age of 50, you still have a hope. You can still adjust. You're flexible enough. I feel like the ones over 50, as long as we can get them to stop doing the sexual harassment, the really, really illegal things, we'll take the win. But the younger men they have to realize this is not going backwards. They have to learn to work with women. One of the first managerial jobs I had, this man hated that I was his supervisor. I was younger than him, I was a woman, and he resigned. He said, I will not work for her. And he went running to my father thinking his tantrum and resignation will be met with, okay, you be the supervisor. And my father said, no, she's the one in charge now. Report to her or move elsewhere. So I think that attitude is what's going to really hurt men because women are not going anywhere. We're not going to be pushed backwards. Education has moved forward. Agency has moved forward. There's so many benefits of having women in the workplace, but embrace it. Don't see feminism as something that's displacing men. See how can men evolve? How can we also evolve forward, upgrade our skills? If women have been giving birth and looking after children for 100 years, and now we can also be accountants and lawyers and businesswomen, surely a man can also learn some new skills. If all you guys have been doing is earning money, men are also very capable.
Yes.
But I think it's about attitude. Be open to a new way of doing things. Because even as far as we've come today, it's only going to keep going. So in 30 years, in 40 years, in 50 years, the workplace is going to be very different. If you have a son who's 10 years old now, the kind of manager he's going to be when he's 35, it's going to be in a world that is completely different from how it is today. In a positive way, I hope. But if we don't work together, we're all compounding the problem and making it more difficult. But trying to send women backwards is not a solution. So resisting that is just making your own life harder as a man, in your personal life and in your professional life. See where you can grow to be a better man, to also be supportive more, to do more in the home or with your kids, to have extra skills, to be a better mentor, a better manager, a better partner. Because I think that's what women need today. We don't need fathers and a patriarchal system where you're telling us what to do, you're paying for everything, you're buying everything. We need partners who are our equals, who we can talk to, who can reason with, negotiate with, we can understand. And if men start to take that step, the ride ahead will also be smoother for them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie, for joining us on Fat Talks today. You are indeed a fat leader extraordinaire. You're faithful, you're available, And from this discussion, you're clearly very, very teachable. You've also helped us debunk the myth of superwomanhood and given us a close view by peeling down layers of what it really takes to be a woman in a leadership position. So thank you very much for joining Fidelis Leadership Institute, and we hope to hear more from you and from your many endeavors. We didn't get a minute to discuss your social entrepreneurship, which is a very good practical way of getting women involved and taking the reins in terms of leadership. In the last 2 minutes that we have left, we'll check with our online audience if there are any burning questions for Dr. Natalie. Keep them coming. If we don't respond in this time on the live, we will get back to you. So let the questions come even when the cameras are turned off. And we thank you so much, everyone that has been part of this Twitter Space conversation. We look forward to seeing you on the next FAT Talks every Thursday, same time. We'll bring different thought leaders and personalities to break down contemporary issues and everything leadership. Thank you so much and have a great evening. From the Fidelis Learning Institute, goodbye.
Smart 24, driving business.
It's super fast internet. Oh, it's a super camera. It's a super battery.
Phone battery full.
Yeah, it's a super deal. Get the Capote Super from MTN now at a reduced initial deposit of only 49,000 shillings and pay the balance in Pola for as low as 833 shillings per day. Grab this Super Capote deal and get 2 GB of free MTN data every month for 8 months. Get the Capote Super now from any MTN shop countrywide. Everywhere you go, MTN. Regulated by UCC.